Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. It's David Horsager, and I've got a special guest today. He is on his journey to climbing 7 of the tallest mountain on every continent. And that's not his main thing, though. He's graduated from Harvard. His clients are even American Airlines, Harvard, and Walt Disney Corporation. He's got some amazing books. His first book was a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and USA Today bestseller. We're going to talk about that book and his one of his other books, because I'm very interested in how you're building trust virtually and hybrid these days as well. But before we go any further, welcome Kevin Sheridan.
Thank you so much, David. Pleasure to be on your podcast.
Well, I really appreciate it, and I've heard great things. We connected from Coach Johnson, and really appreciate the connection. But before we go too far, just give us a little background on you.
So I've had a wonderfully eclectic career. I began in commercial banking. I worked for Chase Manhattan Bank as an auditor at 22 years old, and they flew me to about 55 countries to do audits. And then I morphed into investment banking. I worked at Goldman Sachs for a little bit, and then I realized that I'm an entrepreneur and that I am somebody that wants to start companies. So I founded 3 different companies and sold the last one back in 2014, which is great. And then I wrote my 2 books, as you mentioned, David. And, you know, that first book that I wrote, Building a Magnetic Culture, hit, as you said, 6 of the bestseller lists. And when that happens and you get the moniker New York Times bestselling author, you become a speaker. And so that's what I do. I'm a keynote speaker at conferences. And obviously the pandemic had a lot of those conferences canceled, but things are turning around. And the silver lining to this pandemic for me was that, you know, in March of last year, people were calling me. It was like, are you the author of The Virtual Manager, which was my second book, because everyone went remote. And like, my friends are calling me saying, are you prescient? How did you know this was going to happen? And I'd love to say I'm a soothsayer, but yeah, that book has never been more relevant.
Never been more relevant. Let's get into those books. But before we do, one thing I've noticed about the leaders I have on is great leaders, you know, are leading themselves well. Do you have any personal habits, routines yourself daily? You get up, you're speaking to others. You got to have a full tank to share wisdom. You're writing, you're climbing mountains. What are you doing daily? Whether it's health, physical, mental, what are you doing to stay fresh, relevant, capable, and just leading yourself well?
Yeah, it's so interesting you bring that up, because I'm a creature of habit, and I get up early. Typically, I'm up at 5:30, and before I get out of bed, I do 4 stretches. I stretch my legs and my back, and just a great way to wake up in the morning. And then I have a couple of big glasses of water, and then I make my coffee, which is great. And I also periodically throughout the day, I'll get about 2.5 hours of workout in, just to stay in shape. I've cut carbs out of my diet, which is a great way to, just keep the weight down. I try to get outside. And especially on days like today. I live in Evanston, Illinois, and it's just nice to get some vitamin D through the sunshine. And I live 4 blocks from Lake Michigan, so it's nice to walk along the lake. So those are some of my regular routines.
I love it. 2.5 hours of exercise throughout the day. How does that work? What does that look like?
Well, it's with a lot of stretching. I've got a bike in my apartment here, indoor. So, I'll watch my Chicago Cubs lose another game while I work out. And then I've got an ab cruncher, which is a great way to keep the abs in shape. My building here has a fitness center, which I try to do the treadmill. And I'm actually packing. I'm on my way to Florida.
All right. Let's jump. I love that. This is interesting what you said about routines. So often when I talk to leaders, sit next to leaders, especially ones that are healthy, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally and everything else, they have a routine. They get up. They have a physical part to their routine for sure. So very interesting. And carbs are evil, that's for sure. But let's jump into the books. Let's jump into building a magnetic culture. Everybody knows we're going to share your website and everything, how to get that and how to find out more about you. But you talk about. I was interested in your take on employee engagement. We talk about you can't get engagement without increasing trust, but you've got a way of defining employee engagement. Give us a little glimpse of that, and then I want to touch on some, at least, of the 10 engagement drivers.
Yeah, employees that are engaged are willing to exert extra effort. They're completely committed to their employer. That's the second trait of employees. They're not likely to quit even in times of adversity. And they are also magnets to create engagement with their coworkers.
So how do you get them there? How do you take them from, let's say, disengaged to engaged? What are the key drivers, or what are the key ways? What are some things we can do tomorrow? And everybody grab the book, Building a Magnetic Culture. But let's get into what can we start using right away that would help us increase engagement in our teams?
So when I wrote Building a Magnetic Culture, I had spent 35 years as a management consultant doing employee engagement surveys. So we would survey employees for our clients and ask them, what rocks your world, what engages you, and what is disengaging you. So I had 35 years of data that I could turn to my research analysts and say, okay, I'm going to write a book. And never dreamed it'd wind up on 6 of the bestseller list. But I said, I want you to do a key driver analysis and show me definitively what are the top 10 drivers of engagement. So if the bogey is we want employees to be engaged, what are the drivers of engagement? So statistically, he ran a key driver analysis, and lo and behold, at the top of the list, recognition. David, you're doing a great job. Keep up the great work, David. I couldn't help but notice what you did. Fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Recognize employees. Number 2 driver, career development. David, where do you want to be in 6 months for your career, and how can I help you get there? Number 3 driver, and actually number 3 is actually number 1. Who's your boss, David? Who's your boss? Do they do number 1 and number 2? Because great bosses create engaged employees. Great bosses recognize employees, and great bosses care about your career development. Those are the top 3 drivers. Is pay important? Yeah, but it's not the be-all, end-all. You want to make sure that you're paying people fairly, or maybe a little bit above wage, but the pay is not even in the top 10. Unless, of course, you're not treating people fairly and they get, pick up the paper and they realize, oh my God, that competitor of ours is paying more money for my job. So pay is not the be all end all. Communication is on the list. And so hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I love it. Is there any tips you have around how to recognize?
Absolutely. So it's so funny to bring this up because people end with a thank you, and thank you gets you 20% of the value of recognition. So what you want to do is 3 things. You want to say, David, I noticed what you did. You did a great job on that. Secondly, I want to let your peers know what you did. and I'm going to openly communicate why what you did is so intrinsically important to our organization. So give them the meaning as to why. And then you want to do the third thing, which is give some form of restitution. David, because of what you did, here's a $100 gift certificate to your local restaurant, and make it a restaurant that is not well known. It's like the family owned business, typically Italian. Say, take your family to Lombardo's, dinner's on me.
I love it. In our work, we talk about spying people. Be specific, personalize it if you can, and make sure it's authentic or nobody knows. It doesn't matter at all. So when we talk about appreciating people, recognizing people, we want to spa them. But I mean, this flows right with it. Noticing and letting the peers know openly and giving something that they would value. And I think that family restaurant, what a great idea. Everybody needs to eat, right?
Hey, it's Ann with the Trust Edge team here. As you know, we are passionate about helping you and your team perform at your best. And that's why David wrote his new book, Trusted Leader. This true-to-life parable follows the story of a CEO who uncovers the root issue threatening his organization's success. And in the back half of the book, David provides a roadmap for even how to solve those root issues. Get Trusted Leader for your team, your organization, or even just for yourself at trustedleaderbook.com.
So let's go from there. Wait, tell us about, you said something in the book about the secret sauce.
The secret sauce. Yeah, the secret sauce is just genuinely caring. Great managers who create great engaged employees just genuinely care. And they trust. So they trust their employees to do a great job. But, unfortunately, so many managers are viewing their employees as human resources or clogs on the wheel of productivity as opposed to human beings. So take the secret sauce is just saying, caring about what this person is passionate about. So let me ask you, David, what's your passion outside of work?
Well, my 4 kids and my wife. I mean, family's a big deal.
Okay.
I love to fly fish.
Oh
and
you and I share a lot.
I love the downhill ski.
Well, 2 of my passions are fly fishing and downhill skiing. And at 60 years old, I still have game on the slopes. So the reason I ask you is if you're a manager of someone, you ask somebody, what's your passion? So knowing that if I was your manager, David, knowing that fly fishing is your passion, I might pick up a book at Barnes & Noble, if it still exists, offline, on the Bitterroot River. Have you ever fished the Bitterroot in Montana?
I have not.
Oh, my God. You've got to get out there.
I'm headed to Wyoming the end of the week.
I did the cycle on the Bitterroot. There are 6 different trout in that river. And I caught a rainbow. I caught a cutthroat. I caught a cutbow. I caught a brookie. I caught a brown. And then I caught the most elusive trout in the world. You know which one that is? The bull trout. Most fly fishermen will never catch a bull trout in their life. And I came off that river and I married into a family of fly fishermen who were much better than I. And when they learned that I did the cycle, none of them had ever done the cycle. And I did. So, yeah, you want to put the Bitterroot on your list.
Fun.
So what I would do as your manager is I would pick up a book on fly fishing or the Bitterroot River, and I just leave it on your desk saying, with a Post-it note saying, David, I thought you'd enjoy this. You know how meaningful that is to an employee?
Tell me this. You said some other things in the book. Actually, you talked about fun also. How do you do it? I mean, people say, well, we got to work. We got to give value. What's this thing he's talking about? Fun.
Yeah, fun is the missing driver of engagement. Given the fact that the number one reason people quit their jobs, and this is so true, especially after this pandemic we've been through, the anxiety at work has never been more heightened. So what better recipe to prevent people from quitting than fun? The number one reason people quit their jobs is job stress. So what better way to alleviate that job stress than instilling fun? So we would do all types of things at my company, HR Solutions. If somebody was joining on their first day, we'd have a team meeting. We'd do onboarding. We would actually tell the person that they had to stand on the conference room table and sing their favorite song, which of course was a joke, but they were horrified. And we never made them do it, but we pretended. Then we'd ask them, what do you like to do to have fun? We would have cotton candy day. We'd shut the company down every 2 weeks to go over to Millennium Park and have ice cream, or go to Navy Pier and ride the Ferris wheel. It's so important to adopt fun into your culture.
I love it. The one other thing that I think is a challenge for people, and you talked about in the book, recruiting the right hire. Hiring right and hiring wrong, that is costly. How do you, before you talk a lot about building the magnetic culture and these ideas, have fun and, ask them about their passion and recognize people, but how do you hire right?
This is the single greatest mistake that companies make is they accept, they see warning signs in the interview process and they ignore them. Don't ignore them. If you go to my website, you go to my blog, there's a blog that I did called the non-negotiable list. The top 20 things that companies ignore that they shouldn't ignore. So some of the warning signs, can't look me in the eye. That's a problem. That's a trust issue. And certainly in different cultures, there are some exceptions. If you ask somebody a question in an interview and they give a quote unquote answer that doesn't answer your question, that's a problem. I want to hire people that not only listen to the question that I ask them, but directly answer it. That's on the non-negotiable list as well.
Well, these are some great ideas. Lots of ideas. The 3 ways to recognize and asking people about their passion, making it fun at work, non-negotiables. Go to the website. It is kevinsheridanllc.com. Let's jump over to the new book. People are having a big challenge in this virtual environment. I've got a big international pharmaceutical that we're working with. They've got, people in Japan and US and Europe, and you've got maybe the managers in Europe and they're managing someone in Japan. They maybe see them once a year or not even that. How do you, all we deal with out of the Institute is trust, right? We believe a lack of trust is the biggest cost in an organization. So how do we increase trust in a virtual or a hybrid environment? How do we build trust in that environment?
Well, it's palpable that I wrote that book 14 years ago and it's never been more relevant, but trust is the secret sauce to this virtual relationship. So how do you build trust? You show compassion, you show you show concern about what that virtual employee is dealing with. You have regular check-ins. So communication is the critical element to success with this virtual relationship. So you need to make sure that you have instituted in your Outlook calendar a regular check-in, at least once a week, and daily communication, and maybe quarterly visits if this person is remote and somewhere else. Take them out to that family restaurant, once a quarter, if you will. Include them in all relevant meetings. Those are just some of the ways that you build that trust.
So what are you working on these days? What are you learning now?
Oh, it's interesting because, when I was doing all those keynote speeches prior to the pandemic, I always talked about, do a job that you're passionate about. the pandemic threw a wrench into a lot of those events. And so I would talk in my speeches prior to the pandemic. It's like, I even thought maybe this will get old. I don't want to travel as much. And, what do I want to do? My next career, I want to write the lyrics to country music. So with the pandemic, I pivoted, and I've actually written 6 songs. I write the lyrics. I don't write the music. I've never had more fun, David, because I grew up in northern Wisconsin, so I grew up on country music. And my first song is called Please Tell Me Why, and it's about getting older. And it's not about me, but it's like the first stanza to my first country music song is, please tell me why, as I get older, the things that are supposed to be soft get hard, and the things that are supposed to be hard get soft. Please tell me why. Please tell me why I just discovered the first gray hair on my chest, and I can't help but wonder how far south this will go. It's all about fun.
That's fun.
So I'm in the process of finding a musician to write the music to my 6 songs.
All right. What a pivot. Hey, the pandemic, that getting away brought a lot of good about. It forced people to be creative, to maybe live out more what they're passionate about. It forced, you think about all the way back to Isaac Newton when he got away from the Black Plague or bubonic plague, is when a lot of his work on calculus and everything else came out of this time, forced getting away, right? So
yeah,
that's fascinating. What's your biggest hope for the future? What do you hope for in the rest of your life? You got to get Everest done this year, and
I'm looking forward to moving to Florida and just being in a loving relationship and staying healthy and eating healthy. And on my bucket list, I want to learn to play the guitar. I love to sing. So when I move to Florida, I'm going to buy a guitar and teach myself.
Great. There you go. And you can just jump up to Nashville once in a while. Do you have outside of your own books, do you have a favorite book or resource right now?
Well, I'll tell you, Jim Collins' Good to Great changed my life. When I read that book, it was like, that is just seminal. And I've actually shared the stage with him several times. So business-wise, that's my favorite book. My favorite book intellectually was written by a Russian woman, Ayn Rand, and that's Atlas Shrugged. And what a great book.
Lots of stuff here. Any last tip or takeaway before we let you go to get ready to move to Florida?
You and I have emailed each other, right?
Yes.
So you know how my signature line is?
What's it say?
Have fun. And that came from my wonderful redheaded 91-year-old grandmother. She never said goodbye to anyone. She'd raise her left hand and she'd say, have fun. And I hope you do, David.
Thank you so much. Well, this has been a great conversation. Kevin Sheridan. Remember, KevinSheridanLLC.com to find everything about Kevin, all of his books, takeaways, resources, and everything else. And we wish you the best on that next big mountain, both moving to Florida and Everest. And with that, this has been the Trusted Leader Show. Thanks for joining us, and stay trusted.